The second most important thing we can be doing after budgeting is recipe costing cards. So we're going to go take a look at recipe costing cards here. I'm going to go in and, we're going to the recipe costing card here, and you'll see here that we have like all of these recipe costing cards done. You'll see we have batch recipes and item recipes. That's a really important part of the system. A batch recipe is a recipe that goes within another recipe and can be inventoried, right? So if I make a big batch of soup, that's going to go into my item recipe that would be a cup of soup, right? So if I might make 5 gallons of soup, the other thing I can do with that batch recipe is once that 5 gallons of soup is made and it goes on the shelf of my walk-in, that can be something that I can inventory as well. A lot of restaurants are missing that. They'll go, oh, my vendor set me up with inventory, or I have this spreadsheet. And then you look at those spreadsheets, and those are all made up of the products that they buy. But most of the stuff is sort of like in transit. It's been made into mayonnaise has been made into ranch dressing. You have different ingredients that are going into all the sauces that are in there. And
where all of your pennies are going from when they land on your back patio or whatever, your back dock, to their journey into the ranch mayonnaise.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you're looking at, I'm going to get nerdy here, but there's a usage equation, or accountants call it like the cost of goods sold calculation. We at Restaurant Systems Pro call it usage, and that's where we show that we used up a product. Well, if I put mayonnaise and ranch dressing, I haven't used it yet, so I got to account for it somewhere. Right, and so we do that. And so we get to true usage of product when we're comparing to what you actually bought and everything, and what the POS says.
I love that.
I should have used, right? So here, item recipes, those end up getting mapped to the POS system. Each item recipe is going to connect to a button on your POS. And that button is going to show you, like right, here, if I'm looking at an item recipe of 8 ounces of mushroom soup, it'll tell me if I sold 10 of those, it knows exactly how many mushrooms is in that 8 ounces of soup. It'll tell me how many mushrooms I should have used compared to what I actually used.
Got it.
So that's really, really super useful, down to the dollar and the item here. Okay. So it's really cool. You can, like, if I go into a batch recipe, you can see that this is actually haven't looked at this one here, but yeah, this is saying, hey, 8 ounces of salmon with diced bell peppers they put down there, and we have this batch recipe, and it's saying, hey, this is making one 8 ounce portion here, and you can see those portions in there, and you can break down portions and all kinds of things in there. If I go to I'm gonna go back here. Let's go to I think we have an onion relish here that Gregg likes to use. So Gregg's he does sales and he does demos and all that. But I'm going to go here and I'm going to find a batch recipe for a onion relish. Oh, see, I got a bunch of batch recipes for onion relish. So let me do this. I'm going to go into this all-American cheeseburger. Okay. And if you look here, I have a 5.3 ounce patty. I have 2 ounces of cheese. I have a ciabatta roll. You see here we have grouped tomatoes. What groups mean is, for us, and that works for enterprise as well. So if I'm buying tomatoes and I buy tomatoes from 4 different vendors, I don't need to, once I put them in a group, I don't need to track which one from which vendor came in. It's going to connect the last purchase into the system there. Okay. So there's different things like that can happen where, that doesn't work quite perfectly. Let's say I bought 20 cases of Jack Daniels and put it on the shelf, and then I bought another, I got a deal and bought 1 case. Well, the cases of the 20 should override the one that I bought, right? But there's certain situations where mostly it's the last one.
So if you have 4 vendors, you buy tomatoes from each one of those 4 vendors. When you get a delivery and it's from a certain vendor, the system's smart enough to know that the inventory that's on hand is likely from the last vendor you purchased.
Correct. Yeah.
And then if you purchase from a different vendor the next time, it's going to go, and does it matter if the cost of those vendors, is it?
No, so it'll do the cost, the last price, and the last cost. And so even if I buy it from one vendor at 20 pounds a case and another vendor I buy it at 5 pounds a case, it's going to know what the right case size is too on my shelf as well.
One thing I am curious about, you keep on talking about like the significance of batch. So say like you're doing a chicken noodle soup, and you have all these different ingredients coming from all over the place, and now all those ingredients are combined in a 5-gallon, giant container in the walk-in.
Yep.
What is the benefit? Like the true, why does being able to do the batch recipe, how does that affect your bottom line?
So A good measure of that is an example where I was working with a client years ago, and one of the things that's important to me, I've told you this, whether somebody's paying me $3.99 a month, or I had a client in this particular case, they were paying me $10,000 a month to go into their restaurant and help them. And if somebody's going to pay me $10,000 a month to go in their restaurant, it's very important to me that I make them more than $10,000. Right. I want to pay. Anytime we're providing service, we want to more than pay for ourselves. Right. So if we see a situation where there's that kind of money on the line, then we can go in and we want to pay for ourselves. Well, one of the things that happened was they were going into a 4th of July weekend. Right. And so we had just finished up the month of June, and the bookkeeper provided some books for their company. Now, what happened was June 30th was on a Thursday, okay? And then they were taking inventory every Sunday. So they were doing $300,000 in liquor sales in 3 days. Wow. Because it was like on the beach, 4th of July weekend, the whole deal, right? So they go, and if you think about that, they're going to do about $300,000 in 3 days of liquor, like insane numbers, right? Well, just think about what the shelves look like on June 30th compared to July 3rd on Sunday, right? The way emptier shelves, right? Yeah. But the bookkeeper used the inventory from July 3rd for the end of June, because that's the closest one that they had, right? So what would happen is we would actually want to use the June 30th inventory. Now, the thing that's really cool is our software will automatically, we teach to do weekly inventory. It'll automatically calculate what that end of month inventory is, so you don't have to do inventory twice in a week, which is music to your manager's ears. Yeah. So what happens is when you have a usage equation, the usage equation is beginning inventory plus purchases minus ending inventory, right? That's a math equation. But if I look at what is in real time, if I'm looking at my numbers for June, let's say, right? Well, everything that I have on my shelf June 1st is available for me to sell, right? And then I go through the month and I buy product. All the product I buy all month of June is available for me to sell. So everything on my shelf plus everything I bought is there available for me to sell, okay? Then we get to the end of the month. And everything that is still on my shelf, I did not use. Right. So I subtract that out of the equation. I did not use it. And what you're left is what you actually used. Right. Okay. So in the case of this example I'm talking about, if they use that July 3rd inventory, that inventory was like $25,000 less on July 3rd than it was on June 30th. So they actually reduced their profits by $25,000 falsely by using the wrong inventory numbers.
Got it.
Right.
So in the case of the soup, if in that example, say you still have product from the last month sitting on the shelf in that 5-gallon container. Yeah. And unless you use all that going into the next month, there wouldn't be an actual reflection.
So let's say that chicken soup was worth $100. Okay. If I don't count it in inventory, then my usage is going to be $100 more. Right. And it will say that I use it even though I didn't use it and it's sitting on the shelf.
So it might not be in the original packaging that it came to you on the the dock, but when you pull that out of that packaging and you put it in the soup, it's still technically on your shelf.
Correct. Got it. Sometimes that can show up at big time, like where people will they'll only inventory like the whole steaks, but then they cut steaks. Yeah, and that needs
with more and more people going to batch recipe. You're not going to dump out the booze that you didn't sell the night before. Correct. You're going to roll that into the next night. I'm assuming it's going to be shelf stable. Yep. What if that's 10 gallons of vodka? I don't know the numbers to be accurate. I'm not a bartender aficionado, but if you got 5 gallons of vodka sitting on the shelf that was on last month's, ledger, then you want to make sure you're accounting for that. So.
Now, where that really comes into a point is now when I look at how much vodka I sold in my POS system, if I didn't look at my true usage, it could be really off. Right. So I like to use an example of let's say I had 12 bottles of wine on my shelf, right? And then I got a case deal, right? So I had 12, I bought 3 cases, so now I have 48 bottles available to sell, right? Then if I had 30 bottles, let's say at the end of that period, well, I would have only used 18. The 48 minus 30 means I used 18 bottles of wine that week, right? So then I go to my POS system, and my POS system says I sold 17. Well, if I wasn't taking in inventory, all the information I would have is that I bought 36 bottles and sold 17 in my POS system.
Right, because it's not accounting for the backlog.
Yeah. And so you're flying blind. You have no idea where you stand. And so apply that to chicken wings and every single item you sell. It's really, really important.
Yeah.
And let's say I cut steaks, or let's say I bought whole raw chickens. Let's stay on the chicken soup. I bought whole raw chickens, but then I boiled them and picked the meat and made chicken stock and put it in the soup. Well, I still haven't used those chickens yet, right? And we like to say use to rather than sold, cost of goods sold, because we hope that the way we use product is by selling it. That's the goal.
Right.
But it gets wasted, stolen, overportioned.
You
spilled,
used it, whether or not it got used the way you intended or not.
Yes, exactly. And so it's true usage. And when there's variances between ideal usage, which is tying your POS system to your recipe costing card, those variances will show up, and then you can do something about it.
Okay.
Right? Without inventory, you're flying blind.
Thank you for answering my question. We have a lot to unpack, so I don't want to
that's important. That's a really important question, though.
Thank
Eric.
you.
So, and it's like I have people tell me, hey, I don't really want, I want the results that you talk about, but I don't want to do inventory. And I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Then you don't want to own a restaurant. Right. This is a perfect example of this is a guide wire through the obstacles. Yeah. It's an accountability partner.
Yeah.
And this is what you got to do to make money. This is what you got to do to know your numbers.
Yep.
And I think it's hard at first, but you have to remember once you develop these habits, it's just like putting pants on when you get out of bed.
Yep.
You don't think about it. You just go through the motions.
And you've heard early members say that, I think, where it just becomes the way that you do things now. It's not harder. It's actually easier.
Culture.
It becomes your culture. Yeah, exactly. So here we have all this layout. So there we talked about, we were there on groups tomatoes. Here, there's potato wedges. You can see that's a direct product from Cisco. Then bacon, that's a batch recipe. So it's another recipe within a recipe, because how do I buy bacon? I don't buy it by the slice. I buy bacon by the pound, right? So now we got to have a conversion recipe that says a case of bacon makes this many slices, right? If I'm using it by the slice of bacon, right? And so those are things that you need to check. Now, when I'm in the software, if we're looking at the software, I can click this eyeball, and it tells me we said 20 pounds of bacon, 2 10-pound cases makes. Let's see here. If I go view, I can view the recipe and go through that. So we're saying, hey, this 20 pounds of bacon in this recipe makes 215 slices. And we've even made it to where it says, hey, we have these metal bowls that have 25. So you can completely customize this. So now if I'm inventorying, I can just count how many metal bowls I have and know how much bacon's there, right? So now I'm not doing inventory where I'm counting individual slices of bacon in inventory. And it's accounting for it's because it's a different weight and all those things too. So we use this breakdown of a batch to get down to the one slice, but we also know that a whole hotel pan of bacon is 215 slices, which is the whole two 10-pound cases.
Got it. And what you're looking to, the bacon slice batch, this is the recipe you're saying?
This is a batch recipe for getting down to a slice of bacon.
Okay.
But then I store it in metal bowls, and there's 25 slices in that metal bowl.
Got it.
And
so
I figured that
out. An eighth pan or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. They put in there. So another thing where batch recipes come in, where people don't realize that there's certain things that are batch recipes, is I might buy cucumbers. Well, most of the time I buy cucumbers by the each, but I'm using them by the slice on the line, right? So I really want to know I'm putting 3 slices of cucumbers. I'm very exact, right? But I got to cost out 3 slices of cucumbers. So now I can say one cucumber makes on average 25 slices of cucumbers. And now I know how much a slice of cucumber costs.
Got it.
And then as those invoices come in and the prices of cucumbers change, it's all automatically connected. I don't have to do it again.
I love it.
Right? Here I can click on view location, and this will tell me I can just add this batch recipe slices of bacon to any one of my inventory locations, which are completely customizable. I've even had Hobbit Hole be as a inventory location, where that dark space under the stairs they call their Hobbit Hole. That's what that restaurant called it, and that's what it is named in the system.
I love that.
It's completely customizable. So those are in there. So now when I'm working in recipes, I can follow the path back to where I was working. We were looking at this American cheeseburger, right? But I just followed the path. So let's say that price of bacon seemed weird. I could inspect the recipe and go, oh, is this correct? And follow the path through it too. I can put links here. We actually have... we're on here and you can see it, but when you print these out and put them on there, we're actually putting these with our as we talk about tying this over to our POS system, we're going to actually be able to pull these up on our KDS system. So when you're in the kitchen, you have the KDS, it can also double as a recipe screen.
Oh, cool.
On there too. So, but now I can just take my phone, I can scan my recipe, and we teach you to upload them, right? So there's an ad there. But now, and we teach to do it on YouTube because it just optimizes it, and we're making a recipe here, right?
So you can scan this recipe card.
Correct.
And then that will bring you to a video
of how to make your recipe. Awesome. And what we do is we actually have training on creating your own YouTube channel and uploading non-public videos. And you can only get to them by the link. So you have this whole training system in the background of your YouTube channel that's just there for staff training and things like that. And it ties directly into the software. You just put the links in there and the QR code's created automatically, and you can... Awesome. So that's a pretty neat feature in there too. So like from here, that's where you would go, hey, I can generate the recipe card here. So now I have this recipe card, and you can see here that this is also, there's notes that convert it to how a cook makes it versus how it's costed out. Because sometimes how I cost it out is not how a cook's going to read it efficiently, right? I might say 4 fluid ounces of cream, when to a cook I would say a half cup of cream or something.
I love that you have a picture of it too, just because like this is what it looks like when it's put together.
Correct.
We put our lettuce and our onions and our tomatoes on the bottom of the burger, not on the top. That is in that order: lettuce, tomato, then onion. That is how we do it here.
I'll have old school restaurateurs go, I don't read a book while I'm making a burger. And it's like, well, nobody does that. We're not saying for you to do that. We're actually just creating a standard, a line in the sand that you can refer back to.
So if one cook was trained one way to do it, another cook was trained another way to do it, and there's an argument of the right way, just go back to the freaking photo, man. Argument solved.
No argument to begin with.
Cement it. Like draw the like make it official.
Right.
Because drift will happen.
Yep, absolutely. So that's what so that's an item recipe, and you'll see we have batch recipes within. You can see we have direct products that we can use, groups that are in there to keep it up to date. With Enterprise, there's basically super groups where you'll have a tomato, and in Enterprise everything's a group, because each store might be buying a different tomato, but that tomato's got to go in that recipe for the burger, and it is controlled from one parent restaurant, is chosen as the parent, and then all restaurants have that recipe in it too. So I could have 30 units and do all the recipe costing cards for 30 units, and then each individual store will have the correct one that they're buying in that store too, and even reports that compare which is the best price across the stores. Or if the vendor, sometimes there's vendor deals where they're supposed to be providing the best price, but it's hard to track, and it will track it for you.
How long has Restaurant Systems Pro Enterprise been available?
About 18 months.
Okay.
About 18 months, awesome. And really over the last year perfected. Yeah.
I love it.
Yep. So the Enterprise includes being able to run like budget variance reports and P&Ls across, where it can combine stores and areas, and maybe I have EIN numbers that have 3 stores. So if I want to do taxes, I need to combine those 3 stores into one document. But running each of those 3 restaurants, I need those numbers separate, right? In accounting, you'd use like classes for that, but in our system, it's all Enterprise, and we can combine or add or subtract and put them in different areas. So that's recipe costing cards. There's more to it where there's prep systems attached to that and things like that, but that's a good overview of them.
And what are you going to be talking about next?
So talking about next, from recipe cards, we naturally go into looking at what our purchasing and what our usage is, because then we want to concentrate on the top 20% of what we're buying to make a difference in our business. So I'll look at that.
Awesome. Can't wait to get into it.